Hello everybody and welcome to a special episode of Dragon Age Inquisition. So yeah, as I mentioned in the last regular episode, I am going to do an episode dedicated to codexes today, which means I'm going to read some of them and, share my thoughts on them. As you know, normally when I find a codex entry in game, I usually just glance at it, and if it has something to do with the quest at hand, then I read it on camera. But if it isn't, then I just save it and read it later off camera to save some time, and because I know it's not everyone's thing to hear all the codexes. But a few of you seem to be interested in me reading more of them and sharing my thoughts on them. So I thought, yeah, sure, why not make an episode like this, where I just, look at my codex and read a few of them. And yeah, I'm currently standing on top of the tavern, just because I can. I wanted to see if I could get up here, and apparently I can. And I mean, you do have a very, very nice view from here. I mean, look at this. Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this a beautiful place? Also, fun fact, Stroud is actually standing here. You can't see him for some reason, but he is standing here. It's kind of funny that you can't see him, because you can see the soldiers. But apparently Stroud doesn't actually render in until you're a bit closer. So yeah, I think I may actually talk to him in the next regular episode. Anyway, today we're going to do some codex reading, so let's have a look at the codex. Now, obviously, some sections are less interesting than others. I probably don't need to read about crafting materials. Creatures, I don't know, probably not, maybe just a few selected ones, and I don't need to read the tutorials again. The first section is characters, and I think those are actually all kind of interesting, so maybe I'll just start with this one, and then I'll have a look at the other sections. And I don't really know how many codex entries I managed to read today. It really depends on the extent of my rambling, I guess. But I mean, if you really like this sort of format, then I guess we can do another episode like this at some point. So yeah, let's just start with the characters, and then we'll see what we do after that. So yeah, I would say I have about half of them maybe, so still a lot of stuff for me to find. But let's start with the first one, which is my darling Alistair. So, King Alistair Therin was crowned the ruler of Ferelden after the end of the Fifth Blight, and is considered a hero among his people for having fought against the Darkspawn as a Grey Warden. He is one of the few known to have ever left the Secretive Order, never mind one who went on to rule a nation afterwards. I kind of wonder what the current status of Skadi Kuslan is, because, in Awakening, I mean, she was already queen, but she was still ward in command at the same time. So I think that she actually didn't leave the Grey Warden, unlike Alistair, who is apparently not considered to be a member anymore. But I mean, apparently now Skadi Kuslan is somehow missing, and that's kind of odd. So I guess she is still officially Warden Commander. It actually was kind of weird in Awakening, because, I mean, you were running around doing all your Grey Warden stuff and interacting with people, and they never really acknowledged the fact that you were basically their queen. So you were just, acting as a Warden Commander, and the fact that you were also the Queen of Ferelden didn't really play into it at all. But, I mean, I guess considering the fact that only the human noble can actually become Queen of Ferelden, they couldn't really accommodate all those possibilities, so I wonder though, I mean, technically a male human can marry a Nora, I believe, so technically you could also play the game as King of Ferelden, which is kind of odd. Anyway, some in Ferelden claim that the Therin line ended with the death of King Cailan, and that the existence of an unknown bastard was a lie imposed upon the people to overthrow Queen Enora. As such, Alistair's rule has been plagued with trouble, both within his own lands as well as with neighboring Orlais. The Blight greatly weakened Ferelden, and many believe that a renewal of the long-standing rivalry between the two nations is inevitable. Yeah, the problems with Orlais were kind of hinted at in Dragon Age 2 when Alistair came to visit Kirkwall. He spoke about problems with Orlais. Also, you can see that, he isn't completely without his, without opposition. There's still those who would have preferred a Nora as a queen. But I feel that if I had put a Nora on the throne, it wouldn't be much different because she wasn't undisputed either, And especially after her father has been branded a traitor, I'm sure some people would have wondered what her business and what her involvement in all of this would have been and stuff like that. So, the politically wisest option obviously would have been to convince Alistair and Nora to marry and rule together to, unite the two factions. But for obvious reasons, Skadi Kusant wouldn't do that. So, yeah, I feel that Alistair and Nora, both of them would have had opposition in their land, so I don't think we could have actually changed that. Anyway, Blackwall. I do not have much on Warden Blackwall. We know he became Constable of the Grey in Valchevin after Warden Constable Fontaine assumed the position of Commander of the Grey from her predecessor. He also bears the Silverite Wings of Valor, an honor bestowed upon Orlesian wardens for deeds of great daring. The details of the act for which Blackwall earned the Silverite Wings, however, are sketchy. Grey Wardens hide their secrets well. The medal was likely awarded for a campaign to secure Deep Road's entrances within Orlais shortly after the Fifth Blight. Several Grey Wardens lost their lives on that campaign. Perhaps more would be dead if not for Blackwall. According to my sources, Warden Blackwall has been travelling alone for several years now. The last anyone saw him at the keep in Valchevin, it was at 937, so that's 4 years ago, right? We are in 941 Dragon now. It has been completely abandoned along with all other Warden outposts. I believe Blackwall is as curious about this disappearance as we are. Perhaps in time we will find answers. Liliana. So, yeah, what I'm wondering is, obviously, is why he decided to, leave Orlais and why he came to Ferelden to basically live in the woods for, 4 years apparently, apparently before that he was just, like any other warden. He had a position and he fought in missions, and then he just suddenly, went into the woods and lived on his own to recruit. So it isn't really explained here, and I don't think he mentioned it why he suddenly changed his life, I guess. Anyway, let's look at the next entry, Cassandra Pendergast. Lord Seeker Lucius, I am fully aware of the intent behind your predecessor's declaration. Lord Seeker Lambert pried the Templars away from the Chantry control and led them into an assault upon all mages, for reasons you both find justified. I, however, am uncertain when the Seekers of Truth went from guarding against injustice to perpetrating it. If you truly believe that is not the case, I suggest you look out a window at the chaos this war has caused, and ask yourself if Thedas will recover even if you are victorious. I remain at Divine Justinia's right hand and will stay there even if you brand me traitor. I am sorry, but there is too much at stake to swerve from the path we willingly followed at the Chantry's foundation. From a letter by Seeker Cassandra Pendergast to Lord Seeker Lucius Corrin, Dragon 939. So that's 2 years ago. I don't quite remember when Dragon Age 2 ended. I think it was 938 or 937. So this must have been at some time in between, which means during Dragon Age 2, the interrogation of Varric, this may have occurred sometime after the actual explosion. So I'm not sure if at that point she had already left the Seekers or if she still was part of them. I think she may have already left at that point. So I guess it took a few years for Cassandra to find Varric after Anders blew up the Chantry. But it's kind of interesting that I feel that Cassandra still identifies strongly with the Seekers. I mean, she's still being called a Seeker by pretty much everyone. So she doesn't really seem to object that title, unlike Cullen, for example, who is a lot more adamant about the fact that he's not a Templar anymore. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. Anyway, Cole. His name is Cole. He's not that old, perhaps 20 years, no more. He has blonde hair that hangs in front of his eyes. He wears dirty leathers, perhaps the only clothes he owns. He was there when you found Reese in the Templar crypt, but you couldn't see him. Nobody can, and those who do forget him, just like you are right now. Remember the dream. A letter allegedly written by former Knight Captain Evangeline de Brassard, found in the spy in the aftermath of the Mage Uprising. Inquisitor, if you believe that this Cole truly wishes to help the Inquisition and can be trusted to do so safely, I am willing to give him a chance to prove himself. As Solus insists that he is a spirit made manifest in the form of a young man, not a demon possessing an unwilling victim, I concede that he may not be malicious. Nevertheless, Cole's abilities concern me. I would ask Liliana to have him watched, but most of Skyhold seems unable to see the spirit or remember him even if informed of his existence. The servants complain of odd occurrences, items mislaid or moved to strange locations, but have thus far been unable to see or remember the person responsible. Yeah, these are the dialogues that we pick up when we walk through Skyhold, and then we can talk to Cole about it. I still need to find some of these dialogues so that I can actually ask Cole about it. But from, I think, the one that we have finished, it seems that all these weird acts he actually does because it helps people in a weird, convoluted manner. Such actions appear harmless thus far, but I remain vigilant. Cassandra. Cole appreciates the Inquisition helping those who are hurting and in need. Yeah, he always approves if I help people. That's really kind of cute. Corypheus. Let me tell you what I know about the Seven, those Tevinter Magisters said to have entered the Golden City long ago. Each was a high priest to one of the old gods. Each came to the ritual shrouded in secrecy, hiding their true name even from each other. They were competitors, you see. The old gods told them that they would break into the Golden City and usurp the Maker's throne. I mean, that is kind of interesting, because, I mean, if they believed in the old gods, then they didn't believe in the Maker, did they? So that seems to be a weird statement. But only one of them could sit on that throne. Each assumed a title related to their role in casting the ritual. Some texts claim they had a leader, the high priest of Dumat, called Corypheus. He did not rule this group, but instead conducted it, coordinating their efforts to achieve a magical feat never since replicated. They breached the fate, walked physically in dreams, and changed our world forever. Perhaps these seven were the first Darkspawn, cursed by the Maker as the chant of light tells us. Perhaps not. One would think these magisters long dead, but there are whispers this is not so. Think, if you will, what might become of the minds of such beings, corrupted by the blight cast down from prideful folly, simmering in resentment and darkness for over 1,000 years. Where would such men live? Yeah, that actually begs an interesting question. I mean, if Corypheus is still alive, what about the rest of them? I mean, if Corypheus is sort of immortal, then it stands to reason that the other 6 are as well, and that they still might be out there somewhere. So, yeah, that is an interesting thing to consider. Who knows them? For someone must, if whispers persist. What secrets do they yet hold, and what would we do should any one of them return to the light? With luck, these questions we will never have to answer. Yeah, I'm afraid we are faced with exactly this now. But yeah, what happened to the other 6? I wonder. Alright, Cullen. Whatever you have heard of Kirkwall's rebellion, the truth is far worse. I would spare you that. What remains of Kirkwall's Templars have been under my command for the past few years. We have done what we could to assist with the city's recovery, to restore some semblance of order, but my time here is done. Seeker Pendergast has approached me. She wishes to stop the war between mages and Templars. She has been recruiting men and women to the cause and wishes me to oversee the group's military concerns. If the conclave goes well, then we will not be needed. If not, we stand ready. Yeah, it didn't go well, I'm afraid. I have decided to take Seeker Pendergast's offer. The circles have fallen. I can give no more to the Templar Order, nor it to me. The Maker has shown me a new path. I must take it. Except from a letter sent to Southreach by Commander Cullen. I think Southreach was where his family lived, so I assume this is a letter to his family. And yeah, apparently it's about why he decided to leave the Order. But I mean, considering what happened to the Templars in this game, I guess it was a very good decision to jump the boat when you still could, because who knows what else would have happened. I mean, we don't really know how the Templars turned into Red Templars. I guess I might have to play the Templar mission for that to fully understand what was going on there. But I mean, just the sheer numbers of Red Templars makes it kind of hard for me to believe that they all took the Red Lyrium knowingly and willingly. That would be kind of weird. So I guess it is like Cassandra suspected that maybe they have been given the Lyrium without their knowledge at first, the Red Lyrium, and at some point it was just too late, and they just were already corrupted by it. So if the Templars have been turned to Red Templars without most of them knowing, and basically everything could have happened there. And yeah, I think this is just the letter that I snatched from his desk in a blatant act of privacy invasion. It's I think from his sister. I can kind of relate to this, by the way, because my mother always tells me that I don't call her enough either. But if my city has been flattened by some ancient evil, I think I would call my mother and tell her that I'm alright. So I'm not that sloppy. I'm not that sloppy. So yeah, you should keep more contact with your family, because family is important. Alright, Divine Justinia V. Formerly the revered Mother Dorothea of Orlais, Divine Justinia V rose to power after the death of Divine Beatrix III in the year 934 of the Dragon Age. Little is known of Dorothea's background before she joined the Chantry as an initiate, but she proved to be a liberal and daring thinker, willingly to take a former bard and lay sister, Liliana, as a close advisor. A headstrong devotion to her own agenda and rumored support of the Mage Rebellion earned her no small dislike from the powerful priests long used to controlling access to the divine. In the year 940 of the Dragon Age, Divine Justinia called a summit intending to negotiate a truce between the Mage Rebellion and the Templars splintered from the Chantry. The Divine Conclave was held at the Temple of Sacred Ashes, the most holy place in Thedas. Before resolution could be reached, a cataclysmic explosion destroyed the conclave, consumed the temple, rent the sky, and shattered the world's hope for peace. Divine Justinia V perished in the Temple of Sacred Ashes. The Chantry flounders leaderless in the wake of her death, and its fate grows increasingly uncertain. If order is not restored to Thedas, Justinia V might be remembered as the Chantry's final divine. That's interesting. Somehow I doubt this will be the case, but now we actually met Mother Dorothea in Liliana's song. She was the one that rescued Liliana from the dungeon, I think. However, I think by the time that Skadi Kusan came to Lothering, she wasn't there anymore, because I think we interacted with a different mother at that Chantry, so she must have left at that point, I guess. Because we know that Liliana apparently had been staying in Lothering for a while in the Chantry there, but we didn't actually meet Mother Dorothea in in Origins, I think. I mean, I remember that we had to speak to our Chantry mother and convince her to let Stan go, but I don't think it was Mother Dorothea. The Dorian Pavus, only child and heir presumptive to the senatorial seat of Magister Horwood Pavus, Dorian comes from a prestigious line of mages, prominent in the coastal Tevinter city of Carinus since the late Exalted Age. At that time the Imperium was recovering from a failed Exalted March and the Fourth Blight. Gideon Pavus arose as a voice of reason within the magisterium. His bloc of allies convinced the Imperium not to descend upon the weakened South, to extend a hand of reconciliation to those who had once sought their destruction. That House Pavus remained standing even after Magister Gideon was tried for treason is a testament to the power he built, and, as Dorian himself would claim, an excellent example of how internecine politics in Tevinter can bring low even the brightest star. A lesson, he says, one should never forget. Alright, so this is a bit of history on Dorian's family line. And yeah, I'm not completely up to spec with all these events, you know, Exalted March, Fourth Blight. I know there is basically a whole history of Thedas that you can look up with all the different events happening, but I must admit that I'm not fully familiar with all of them. Grand Enchanter Fiona. Grand Enchanter Fiona is considered an anomaly among mages. She is, for instance, the only member of the Circle of Magi ever to leave, due to recruitment by the Grey Wardens, and then return. The circumstances of that return are largely unknown, but the notoriety she gained within the Circle allowed her to rise rapidly in the ranks. She became first Enchanter of the Morsimar Tower and then elected Grand Enchanter at the College in Cumberland. The latter was based on her advocacy for greater mage freedom, a view she claimed her time within the Warden supported. Urging for a vote on the matter led to the College of Enchanters' dissolution in 940 Dragon, and then, when a vote was attempted secretly, to Lord Seeker Lambert of the Seekers of Truth arresting Fiona and her fellow enchanters. Following their flight to the ruin of Andorel's Reach, the escaped mages held and passed the final vote on the Circle of Magi's independence. This began the Mage Rebellion. While Fiona no longer holds the official position of Grand Enchanter, most mages still consider her an integral part of the rebellion's leadership. Yeah, those are events that happened in Asunder. And I think if I wanted to know more about the rest of her life, I could read the other book, The Calling, I believe. I currently try to read The Masked Empire, but I'm not sure if I can actually make my way through that book before I continue too far in this game, because apparently it does relate to the other main mission that we still have to do. Not the Grey Warden one, but the one that I have largely ignored for now. Anyway, the Hero of Ferelden. The Hero of Ferelden was the daughter of Bryce Cousland, Tern of Highever. When Alren and House forces attacked Castle Cousland and murdered most of the Cousland family, the hero escaped to safety with Grey Warden Commander Duncan, who then recruited her into the Order. After defeating the Archdemon and ending the Fifth Blight, the Hero of Ferelden was wed to King Alistair and crowned Queen of Ferelden. She and the king ruled the country together until she disappeared several years later. Her current whereabouts are unknown. Yeah, this is still very disconcerting. I hope we find out more about that. Especially considering the fact that a lot of wardens are disappearing and now she is gone as well. I don't like that. I don't like that. High Chancellor Roderick. There are some who claim men have no place in the Chandri beyond the lowest rank of scholarly brothers and those who take their place amongst the Templars. It is not true. This is an organization spanning 7 nations, from the smallest village Chantry to the Grand Cathedral in Val Royaume. It takes more than sermons to keep it alive. There is an invisible army at work ensuring meals are delivered, repairs are made, and faithful attended to. And much of it done by the Chantry brothers like myself. The position of High Chancellor places a man beside the Most Holy. I control who is permitted audience, handle her correspondence, deliver her word to Thedas, and serve as her advisor on matters which may be mundane but cannot be disregarded. If I have influence, let it be said, it is something I use sparingly, if at all. This is a task to which I devote myself with solemnity. I and my fellows bear a burden so that others are free to guide the spirits of Thedas unencumbered. Except from a letter by High Chancellor Roderick, Asinion 938 Dragon. Alright, yeah, this explains a little bit about the position of man within the Chantry. So apparently his position is, more bureaucratic than spiritual. This is basically what I'm getting from this Codex entry. Alright, Iron Bull. M, my dear friend. I completely understand the difficulty you face. To have such well-equipped bandits attack your family's caravans so regularly and with such exquisite knowledge of your shipping schedules is indeed highly unfortunate. There is no shame at all in finding your household gods wanting in such trying circumstances. To answer your question, when faced with my own troubles last year, I employed the Bull's charges. Their leader, the Iron Bull, is a Conari, a great horned giant of a man. He looked like a savage, but spoke like a gentleman. He seems unstoppable in combat, but is far more clever than a simple swordsman. His mercenaries were costly, but they were both strong enough to protect my family's caravans and clever enough to discover how the bandits came into such luck in their attacks upon my family. The bandits have been no trouble at all since, and a baron of our mutual acquaintance effusively assured me that he would be greatly surprised if they ever again caused us difficulty. If you wish to employ the Iron Bull, I can provide you with his contact information, as well as a list of the liquors he enjoys most particularly. Will your husband also be present in these negotiations, or will you be making the acquaintance of the Iron Bull in a more intimate setting? If so, we shall have to talk the next time our men go hunting. Yours in friendship, B. A letter lifted from a hidden drawer in a noble woman's vanity and copied carefully before being returned. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder how intimate the setting was supposed to be, but apparently the Iron Bull's exploits are already well known among nobility. I gotta say, I really like how they build the codexes. Instead of just giving you a plain text, they use very creative methods to introduce the characters or to give us some information about them, by letters written by themselves or by letters written by others about them. I really like the way they did this. Josephine Montelier. Josephine Montelier is a noble from the nation of Antiva. She was educated in Val-Royeaux, where she built connections among the court. Once she finished her schooling, at a surprisingly young age, Lady Montelier became the official diplomat between King Fulgano of Antiva to Empress Celine of Orlais. The appointment suits her. She is well-travelled, familiar with many forms of etiquette, by all accounts a skilled negotiator. If that endorsement does not suffice, Josephine is a personal friend. I have faith in her. We require someone both influential and trustworthy to be an ambassador for the Inquisition. You cannot tell me you would prefer to take the job yourself, Sister Liliana. Yeah, I don't think that Cassandra would like to take that job. So, again, this is a very clever way to introduce Josephine as, basically a letter of recommendation by Liliana. I do like that. And speaking of Liliana, here she is. She has many names. Most know her as Sister Liliana or the Nightingale. Some refuse to speak her name at all, referring to her only as the left hand of the divine, the shadow behind the sunburst throne. The spy master Marjolaine trained Liliana from a young age. For years Liliana was Marjolaine's instrument in the great game of Orlais. While Liliana was devoted to Marjolaine, the reverse was not true. Marjolaine betrayed Liliana and almost succeeded in killing her. Liliana survived the betrayal thanks to Red Mother Dorothea. Yeah, this is basically the events of Liliana's song. Following this betrayal, Liliana spent several years in a cloister in Ferelden, hiding from her past. Inspired by revered Mother Dorothea, Liliana dedicated herself to her faith, discovering peace in a simple life of devotion. But when the Fifth Blight began, she received what she believed a vision from the Maker. This prompted her to leave the sanctuary, taking up arms against the Darkspawn. Several years after the defeat of the Archdemon, Liliana received a summons from Dorothea, now Divine Justinia V. She returned to Arlay to become an agent of the Sunburst throne. Justinia perished in the explosion that destroyed the Divine Conclave, and Liliana became a founding member and spy master of the new Inquisition. Yeah, I mean, Liliana has quite a bit of history in this game. I mean, starting from Liliana's song, which takes place even before Origins, and then, of course, during all of Origins itself. She has some short appearance in Dragon Age 2, and now she's back in this game in an important role. So yeah, she really has quite a lot of stuff happened during all these games, and it's interesting how she developed since then. I mean, she is very different in this game than she was in Origins. And I mean, in Origins you had the possibility to either harden her or not. And I mean, I did not harden her because I didn't kill Marjolaine, I think, and some dialogue options that I took. But in the end, in this game, it is basically like she had been hardened. And I mean, I guess you can explain it by all the other stuff that happened in between. And they kind of needed a more unscrupulous Liliana in this game, so it didn't really matter what happened in Origins and whether or not she was hardened in that game. It is on the one hand a little bit disappointing that doesn't really matter anymore, but I can somewhat understand why they did this. Alright, Lord Seeker Lucius Corran. Every Templar I knew felt certain he would... Oh, I don't know why they start sometimes at the bottom of the Codex entry, because, you know, if I end one Codex entry at the end, then the next Codex entry also is scrolled down. For months we are also certain Lord Seeker Lambert's death was an assassination carried out by mages. He had, after all, declared the Neverna Accord null and void, hurtling us headlong into a war against the rebels. Why else would he be killed except as an act of retribution? Well, apparently it was coal, so yeah. The entire Templar Order was fired up, ready to take up the fight against the mages, something we were sure would be over in a matter of weeks. Thus, the election of Lucius Corran to the role made me despair. According to the few seekers of truth with whom I spoke, he was a moderate. He agreed to the Divine's conclave, and every Templar I knew felt certain he would compromise to see the war ended. But lately, the man seems different, does he not? I never met him before he assumed command, but even in this short time his opinion on the war has turned. He did not go to the conclave he personally supported. In fact, he seems to regret supporting it at all. He talks of the Templars establishing themselves as a power in our own right, and our fellows are all too eager to listen. I don't know from where this change of heart came, but I begin to wonder if Lambert's death wasn't as simple a matter as we assumed. Something is amiss within our order, and all I know is that it's beyond me to discover what. From a letter written by an unknown Templar found in a burned-out Fort 941 Dragon. So yeah, this is the guy that we met in Val Royeaux, and he was in fact quite of an ass. But again, I guess in order to know what was really going on with him, I would have to play the Templar mission, and I mean I will play the Templar mission at some point. So I'm fine with not knowing this for the time being, because I will find out eventually, and I'm sure it will be interesting. Magister Arimond, my dearest Demetrius, I hope this letter finds you recovered from those ghastly meetings about road repair or import taxes or whatever terribly important work has consumed your time. I applaud your patriotic efforts to maintain the Imperium's infrastructure while the horned beasts to the north wage bloody war upon us. I have asked before, but you are my closest friend, and now that you have seen the stirrings of our work, I hope you might reconsider. You cannot think our talents adequately spent on road work, Maître. You came from the blood of the dreamers. My master will restore the Imperium to a greatness it has not seen since our ancestors walked in the Golden City. He will rule not just a nation, but the world. Those who show loyalty now stand up, reap the benefits when all the world kneels to the Venatori. Perhaps you are more comfortable with roads. When my master returns Tevinter to the glory it deserves, he will be pleased to find the nation well paved. Consider well, my friend, Magister Levis Erimond of Iranthium. Yeah, that guy is also a bit of an ass. It's the guy that we met in the Western Approach. But I mean, roads are important and infrastructure is important, and someone has to take care of that, you know. even under the ruler, even when being ruled by somebody like Coryphus, you will still need roads, my friend. So yeah, consider that well. Magister Garion Alexius. Lords and ladies of the Magisterium, before we vote on the budget for this latest measure against the Conari, I would ask that we take a moment to consider the state of our institutions of higher learning. The Circle of Minrathus is more than 10,000 years old. Wow! Darenius the Dreamer himself was born within those walls. It continues to be a source of wisdom and guidance for the best and brightest of the Imperium's youth. Yet it falls into disrepair. Magister Aurarius has made her case several times for increased funding to the circles, and as yet her appeals have gone unanswered. Magister Viren has spoken at length on the threat of the Oxmen in the north, a tide of brutality that we alone hold back. Let me add this. How shall we defeat the Conari? How have we held back the advance all these long years without support from the other nations of Thedas? You know the answer. Magic. It is our magic that holds the beasts at bay, and through the ingenuity of our magic we will drive them from our shores forever. My friends and colleagues, this is a battle we prepare our apprentices, sons and daughters to face. They need the resources to discover new magic, new techniques that can lend us advantage in this endless war. They cannot do this while roofs crumble over their heads. Repair the circuits. Let the Imperium's future be more than slow decline to the marching steps of legions. An address by Magister Alexius to the Magisterium, taken from official minutes in 939 Dragon. That's actually an interesting argument that he makes here. That the only reason why the Conari haven't overrun the rest of Thedas is because of magic. And I mean, everybody else in Thedas kind of views Tevinter in a negative light and their free use of magic. But I mean, there may be something to it, and who knows how the rest of Thedas would fare if the Tevinter wouldn't hold back the Conari for all this time. So yeah, that's actually an interesting entry here. Professor Frederick of Serrault. That's the weird guy we met in the desert, right? Anton. If anyone alive can answer your questions about the social habits of the greater Wimmark Wyvern, it is Frederick of Serrault, professor of draconology at the University of Orlais. I have met him a few times, and he is exceedingly knowledgeable about his field of study, although less knowledgeably about his current state of dress, the day of the week, and the location of his quill and ink, but nonetheless quite brilliant. Yeah, he seemed to be very, very much into his topic and not really acknowledging the rest of the world around him. Samson. I want this made clear to every man and woman in our army. Do not challenge the Red Templars leader's General Samson on your own. You may have heard stories of how Samson used to be a Templar in Kirkwall until he was thrown out of the order, that he became a vagrant begging for coin to buy lyrium. That man no longer exists. The fiend who attacked us at Haven had the strength of a dozen men. Samson has the training of a Templar and all the power of red lyrium at his command. For those who did not see it first-hand, he is as dangerous as any demon, perhaps worse. Treat him as such. I will hold personally accountable any officers who do not communicate this order to their soldiers. Letter from Commander Cullen issued to commanding officers and read to all Inquisition soldiers. That's interesting because we haven't actually seen much of Samson so far. We only saw him, when he appeared next to Corypheus during the attack of Haven. We haven't actually seen him fight. Well, at least I haven't. Apparently, Cullen has seen him during the attack at Haven, but we haven't really seen much of Samson so far. But I assume this will change sooner or later. Sir Stroud, born the youngest son of a minor noble family in the fields of Ghislaine, Jean-Marc Stroud has just finished training at the Académie des Chevaliers when he received word that his family had been killed, ostensibly by bandits. In reality, they were victims of the Elysian Great Game. Sir Stroud's plans to find his family's murderers was cut short when the Grey Warden, Clarel, recruited Stroud to the advice of the Academy trainers, who did not wish to see a promising young chevalier throw his life away in fruitless pursuit of vengeance. Unable to refuse such a request honorably, Sir Stroud joined the Wardens and left his old life behind. Warden Stroud has served the Grey Wardens with honor for decades. He is regarded as one of the finest swordsmen in the Order, combining his study at the Academy with years of fighting Darkspawn alongside dwarves in the Deep Roads. Warden Commander Clarel has tasked him with recruiting and training new Wardens. Most young Warden warriors owe their skill to Stroud's mentorship. Stroud prefers to travel in the Free Marches rather than Orlais. Knowing his family history could cause him to become caught up in the game, leading to accusations of political interference among the Wardens. He also has no strong opinion regarding Mages or Templars, although he believes both groups wrong to turn their backs on the Chantry, which Stroud held in some esteem. An intelligence report delivered to Liliana. This is an interesting information on Stroud. From what I've read in the comments, Stroud is apparently a bit of a stand-in for potentially Alistair in this game. So if Alistair hadn't become king, then Stroud takes over, or possibly Loghain if he's still alive. But I mean, obviously in my case, it's Stroud. Sarah. This report by Josephine has been defaced numerous times in a different hand. On Sarah, Red Jenny, and Velissima Lady Parts von Knucklefronts. It falls to me to comment on this, Red Jenny, for as a creature of the court I must have seen the effect of her actions, although I cannot be certain. Does that make them effective or ineffective? What I know is that she has vexed City's guardsmen and Prothades, and always escaped. Accessing all available records, it seems clear that there have been multiple embodiments of the name, often at the same time. The limitations of communications are such that this is impossible to verify in the moment. A crude drawing of a guard with her breeches at her ankles. The severity of the attributed actions vary wildly, from petty to outright vicious. While official reports label these actions unfair, I have knowledge of many named as victims and several are suspect character. Sarah would call them something altogether untoward. Yes, Mom, shits, the lots of them. There are tales of Red Jenny targeting criminals, slavers, and even assassin guilds. The benefit of having a local is that they are invested in regional concerns, although this obviously varies. I can discern no protocol. Don't need a title to be awful and deserve it. So who is our Red Jenny? She has been amusing herself in Val Royeaux for some time, although it is clear from her accent that she is deeply Ferelden. She met with outright laughter my inquiry as to whether she had any special elven concerns that I could address. I have conferred with Liliana about the danger of this group, and our estimation is that this incarnation of Red Jenny is, at least, a good distraction. Oh, the scary one cares. Addendum, Denerim. Sarah's claim to have lived in Denerim cannot be verified, but seems likely. The alienage there was neither stable nor secure. Many residents of the city fled the region following the Blight. Given her nature, Val Royeaux would have seemed rife with targets. Denerim has more than its share of suspect nobility, but most were rallied against a common enemy, thanks to the efforts of the hero of Ferelden. Forced to, more like. Shits and double shits. Well, I don't know. I don't think that we forced them. I mean, we convinced them fair and square at the land speed, most of them anyway. Addendum. On Sarah's fascination with dragons, I do not know what Sarah finds in dragons that enthralls her so, but it is clear from her excited admission that battling them speaks to her in a way for which she was not prepared. At least in my estimation. If you seek an admission, at best she will declare, "That was grand," or similar. She is hardly introspective. Nevertheless, she has expressed an interest in any future hunts. A crude drawing of Sarah tongue out, standing atop a dragon, mimicking its horns with her fingers. Piss cannot draw saddles. Yeah, I think I actually got this piece of Codex because I took her to the first dragon fight. So it's interesting that the Codex changes depending on the actions that you do in the game and whether you take someone along to a certain mission. That's kind of clever. And Solus. Cassandra, I understand our first order of business must be to investigate this bizarre breach in the sky and protect people from the demons descending. While my search continues, I wish to draw your attention to a new arrival at our camp, an elven apostate calling himself Solus. Solus entered the camp voluntarily, surrendering his staff to Chantry forces without protest. He is not Dalish and says that he has never been part of the circle, claiming instead to have studied magic peacefully on his own, particularly magic tied to the Fate. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how he apparently managed to escape the Templars all his life. He's not Dalish, but he must have come from somewhere, and apparently, kind of like Bethany, he was an apostate all his life. While I suspect you will be reluctant to accept the help of an apostate, Solus did come to us freely. Witnesses saw him in a nearby village at the time of the blast, so he was likely not responsible for what happened at the conclave. However, he has described the effects of the breach in enough detail to convince me that he knows more about the Fate than anyone else present. Solus has required permission to study the lone survivor and one of the smaller rifts in hopes of finding a way to seal the breach. He has correctly guessed that it is growing and believes it will destroy the entire world unless we find a way to stop it. Unless you object, I will allow him his studies, under proper observation, of course, Liliana. So yeah, this is obviously from the start of the game when Solus kinda took care of the Herald of Andraste. And yeah, the champion of Kirkwall. I've heard the name Hawk on several lips this week. Many of us blame the champion for the events in Kirkwall which sparked a war and hurled all Thedas into chaos. But can we truly fault Hawk for what she did? I mean, you obviously cannot. I mean, what was she supposed to do in that situation? Here was a poor refugee from Ferelden who came to the free marches fleeing the Blight. Coming from a family of apostates, Hawk must have spent her life hiding from Templars, hearing about the abuses to which mages under the care of the Circle were subjected. Make no mistake, there were abuses. We will never find a peaceful solution to this conflict until we admit that we were partially responsible. Imagine how it must have been for Hawk when she rose to prominence for her role in ending the Qunari threat of 934. From refugee to champion of Kirkwall. Hawk's position gave her power and influence, nothing could touch her. Hawk always had sympathy for mages and perhaps wished to do more for them. Are the champion's actions during the mage uprising so hard to understand given all I have said? Following the destruction of the Chantry, Knight Commander Meredith invoked the right of annulment and called for the execution of every mage in Kirkwall. It was not right, another injustice added to an already lengthy list. Hawk knew it and stood against her. I mean, this pretty much summons up the end of Dragon Age 2. I mean, Juno didn't really make the decision because she wanted rebellion or because she believed in any higher causes, but purely based on the fact that she thought the right of annulment at that point was an injustice and she couldn't let it happen. So that was really all her reason she needed. She put herself between the Templars and the mages they thought to destroy and became a legend. Even though she later disappeared, fleeing Kirkwall and the Chantry's justice, what happened in Kirkwall that day changed Thedas forever. By defying Meredith and our order, Hawke became a beacon for the Mage rebellion that gave the Mages hope and rallied them. They fought back, and here we now stand on the eve of the Divine Conclave, seeking peace before the rebellion destroys it all. Knight Commander Marteau of Monsignor speaking to Templars attending the Divine Conclave. I guess this guy hasn't survived that conclave. I wonder how this text would be different, though, if you had supported Templars at the end of Dragon Age 2. Trevelyan, the Free Marcher. So this is about Freya. The Trevelyan's are nobility from Ostwick, a city-state on the southern coast of the Free Marches. It is an old and distinguished family in good standing among its peers and with strong ties to the Chantry. Its youngest sons and daughters, those third or fourth-born children with little chance of becoming heirs, often join the Chantry or become Templars or clerics. As the youngest child, Lady Freya Trevelyan was expected to follow suit until the disaster at the Conclave. I mean, I slightly changed this because, I mean, this kinda implies that she is still very young because, I mean, you join the Templars or the Chantry at a very young age. And in my personal story, she is a bit older, so at some point, something else must have happened already that, prevented her from becoming a Templar or a Chantry sister. And I basically say that, at some point she just left her family and, went on to live her own life, and that she only went to the Conclave as, maybe an act of reconciliation, trying to get closer to the family again. But the way it stands here, it is implied that she was still young enough to actually become a Templar or a Chantry sister, and it didn't happen because she was sent to the Conclave instead. And that kind of limits my options here. So I'm sort of ignoring this part of the Codex, I guess. So yeah, Freya was present at the Temple of Sacred Ashes as a representative of her family's interests, along with other distant relatives in the Chantry. She was the only survivor at the temple after the explosion. Rumors that the mysterious mark on her hand is a sign of the Maker's favor were spread by those who claim they saw the divine prophet Andraste herself let Lady Freya out of the Fate. And Varric. There's power in stories, that's all history is. The best tales, the ones that last, might as well be mine. Varric Tetris of the Dwarven Merchants Guild of Kirkwall is famous or infamous for two things: his books and his association with the champion of Kirkwall. After the Templars and Circles broke away from the Chantry, Divine Justinia V sent her agents to Kirkwall, where the roots of the war began, in search of answers. The champion had long since disappeared, but Varric had written a book on his friend's involvement in the destruction of the Kirkwall Chantry, and the left and right hand of the Divine located him with surprising ease. Apparently Varric wasn't very good at hiding from them. They captured and interrogated him, then brought him to the Conclave to give his testimony to the Divine in person, but fate decreed that he would never meet her. Yeah. So apparently Varric did stay in Kirkwall so he could write his book, and once he had finished his book, then Cassandra caught up with him. That's kind of funny, actually. Vivienne, Madame de Fer. Magic is dangerous just as fire is dangerous. Anyone who forgets this truth gets burnt. An assiduous and talented scholar, Vivienne rose rapidly through the ranks of Mortimer's circle when made a full-fledged enchanter. She elected to join no fraternity, a decision that shocked colleagues but may have been a calculated maneuver. Well, I guess it probably was, considering that she is very, calculating. When she successfully applied to be appointed enchanter to the imperial court, nearly every fraternity clamored for her favor in hopes of having a representative at the Empress's ear. She was voted first enchanter to Monsignor at an age young enough to cause scandal. The circle widely regards her as the most shrewd and disciplined mage in Orlais. And Warden Commander Claro, that's the current leader of the wardens in Orlais, I guess. To Artigan Garin. I thought a chance to speak with you in person, my lord, in hopes to convince you to allow us to send further aid to Ferelden, to give the Grey Wardens in your homeland a chance to rebuild. I hope this letter succeeds where my request for a meeting have not. I understand Ferelden's feelings regarding Grey Wardens. Sophia Dryden's actions were reprehensible. Grey Wardens are forbidden from interfering in the affairs of nations, save when we must exert our authority to battle the Blight. I think this was actually part of that DLC in Origins, Soldier's Peak, where you could investigate, the history of that place, and I think Sophia Dryden led the Grey Wardens at the time against the rebellion against the king because they considered him a tyrant. It was very vague and it was very unclear, but apparently after that they were exiled from Ferelden. Still, even you must acknowledge that the vital necessity of my order after the Blight nearly ravaged your homeland. Without the Grey Wardens, Ferelden would be a wasteland populated only by Darkspawn. I understand as well your concern that I am a mage living outside the confines of the Circle. I have been informed that you saw magic ill-used by apostate at Redcliffe. You have my sympathy in this, but not my apology. The Maker saw fit to give me the gift of magic, along with a temperament better suited to battle than quiet meditation. I left the Circle legally, and the Grey Warden gave me a chance to use my abilities to defend our land. I am no apostate. My first interest, Altegan, indeed my only interest, is to see this world protected from the Blight. I may be Warden Commander of Orlais, but I am not Orlesian at heart. I am a Grey Warden and nothing more, and I will defend this land from horrors you cannot even imagine. My oath comes before political ambition, before concerns about the rights of mages. It will one day come before my own survival. I hope to hear from you soon. Yours, Warden Commander Clairol de Chanson. I'm not quite sure what she wants from Altegan in this regard. I think she just wants to send more Grey Wardens into Ferelden, which is weird because isn't like Skadi Kusan the Warden Commander of Ferelden, so shouldn't she be responsible for that? But I guess it's is after she has disappeared, so I guess this would explain it. And finally, Zenon the Antiquarian. I left the Black Emporium empty-handed for two reasons. First, most of the items were priced far beyond what I could afford. Yeah, they are kinda expensive. Second, I spent most of my short time there trying to sate my curiosity about its proprietor. I found myself stealing glances at the antiquarian from behind piles of books, between shelves, and at one point over a basket of mismatched socks. There he sat, petrified, in the center of the emporium, skin of waxy grey over ancient taut sinew, moaning in a voice so dry and brittle it sounded like the snapping of twigs after a drought. A girl of not more than 12 scurried to and fro to fulfill his numerous requests. Another patron noticed my fascination and told me that the girl, most likely an urchin rescued from the street, was responsible for the needs of the antiquarian, feeding, washing, and the like. So impossibly old is he, and so fragile his skin, he can only tolerate the barest whisper of touches from the smallest and most tender of his servants. Only in this way he may come close to his lost youth, said the man. I was surrounded by objects of legend, yet none fascinated me as did the antiquarian. From a journal page found in Kirkwall's Darktown, written by an unknown author. Yeah, this guy is kind of weird, and he just sits there like forever and is still alive somehow. It's very interesting. Anyway, yeah, we've done the character section, at least whatever is available up for us now. And I actually think that I'm going to end the episode here because it's almost an hour long now. So, yeah, I mean, if you like this sort of episode, then maybe I will do another one and read selected entries from other sections, like probably the history sections and the group section, and I guess tales and letters and notes can be interesting as well. Although I won't read absolutely every single Codex entry. But yeah, let's go back here. So I'm going to end this bonus episode here. Tomorrow we will continue with our normal exploits, specifically starting the next main mission. So yeah, let me know what you think about this, whether you want to have more of this. And other than that, thanks for watching, and see you again in the next normal episode tomorrow.